Hey, everybody. Guess what? We're here today with the Workplace Fairytale, a podcast where we help you replace the suck at work with joy. I'm your host, Zohreh Yamin, CEO of The Human Priority, where we join with you to create your workplace fairytale. We are here today with episode 2, where we are talking about upleveling culture. In episode 1, if you're interested, we talked about some of the myths of culture, the payoff, what it looks like to have a great culture. I'm just going to hit those really briefly here. We're focused on high respect, high trust, and high collaboration. The myths that we covered is just real quickly is that the big takeaway is that while it's complex, it can be changed and it's worth it. And today we're going to be talking about just how to tackle that. So how to take your culture from where it is today to a better place. I love that concept of going from bad to better, to good to best. And wherever you are in that continuum, we can always up-level our culture. So let's dive in and talk about how we do that. So the first thing is we need to believe it's possible. You got to believe it's possible. If you've ever had the experience, I remember when I started out as a leader, I referenced a little bit of this in the origin story where I had gone from being a counselor to a leader overnight. And I really felt like a giraffe. My neck was so long and that it was going to get chopped off. But one of the things I thought when I had a team that felt negative to me, there was a lot of gossip, backstabbing, talking about what was wrong, what wasn't possible, is I thought if I hired someone that had such a great attitude, like so bright, their light was just shining out the building, right? That would turn that team around. And so I did that. I did that repeatedly till I figured out that all I was really doing was hurting that person who I hired with that bright light, putting them in that team with all that negativity. And that what happened is they got brought down. They felt in despair and the team didn't become more positive. What I realized is I needed to go in and help that team shift and change their mindset, to change the culture of that team, to help them understand. Well, first of all, I needed to listen to them and understand why they were so unhappy. That's the first thing, because that was my rookie mistake, right? I thought that the problem was them, right? Little did I know at that time that the problem was me, that I wasn't listening. I just wanted them to come and be happy, do your job, be happy. And like, why are we not happy, And so that was a big learning lesson for me is that, I needed to slow my roll. I needed to listen. I needed to find out why they were unhappy. And yes, we do have different approaches to life. And some of us are naturally more optimistic. But what we know research tells us is that we can learn and adapt a more positive mindset. We are not, what is that word where I'm blanking on it now, but there's a really common saying that it's just like we're out of luck. This isn't the word I was trying to think of, but that it's just like, we're born into it and just born as negative people. We're going to be negative people. And if you have negative people on your team, then that's just going to be the way it is. That's not the case. When people are, and I promise this is relating to up-leveling culture. So when people are in a negative place, sometimes they have personal stress, sometimes they have work stress, sometimes it's just the way they know how to communicate and connect. And so the solution wasn't to bring the one bright, light, positive person that wasn't under any stress yet and to put him on a team that was in a really rough place and expect that they would just kind of get better together. The solution, just like culture, was to understand what's happening. Why are we in a darker or a more negative place? And to believe that we can be in a more positive place and we can get there together. Hence, one of the biggest pieces, and I would say critical, necessary to up-leveling your organizational culture is to believe it is possible. Okay? The other thing is it is going to take investment. I feel like a lot of the times when I'm doing consulting, advising, coaching, mentoring, that I'm sharing some of the most basic fundamental things. A lot of times we want the bright, shiny new thing that's going to make everything better. And a lot of times it really is those foundational pieces. And one of the foundational pieces is it takes investment. It takes our time. We have to put the effort in. And if you're going to work on up-leveling your culture, you want to go for the long game. It doesn't mean it's going to take a long time to see positive improvement, but it means that you're not going to want to take a few actions and say, oh, hey, it didn't work. It's not worth it, and walk away. Just don't do it. Don't even approach culture. If you want to approach culture, you're going to want to be a scientist. You're going to want to understand. But hey, I'm jumping ahead. I actually have some points that I want to go through with you. So let's take that scientific approach and go into these points. So steps to up-level your culture. So we already talked about believing it's possible. The next step is to create your bold vision. So what you want to do there is you want to come together as a team and articulate what your goal is for your organizational culture. Whether you're a team of 10 or 10,000, you still want this. You want to bring people together and start to talk about what that culture needs to be for you all to be successful as an entity. And you want to be able to communicate and articulate that, be aligned in that, and have that bold vision. The next thing, as part of that, before I go on, so you don't feel like you're starting on a blank page, is you can, in the session where you bring them together, one, you could give them some background on why this is important and how culture does shape everything, and that it is something that together you all can transform. And then you can encourage them to imagine what the culture is that they envision for the company and why. And then you can ask them to reflect on the culture of companies and the leaders that are part of it that inspire them. And from that dialogue in place, you can start to form this bold vision. Now, the next step, so we're on step 3, right? We believe that it's possible. We've come together to start to create this bold vision. Then you want to share that vision out to larger and larger groups and collaborate with them to make it a shared vision, right? And so something that you have passion about, it will relate to your values and your mission, but it is something that you share that, as an entity, as a company or an organization, that this is the way we are together. This is the way that, our clients are welcome. This is the way our employees feel. This is the way we are part of communities. And it is more encompassing. It includes your values and your vision and your mission, but it also includes the way that you are and the way that people feel when they interact with you. And that's so critical. And then you invite them into the conversation and you make the adjustments that make sense based on their input, because you're getting input that matters to you. You're not just telling them, because, I cover this in episode 1 on demystifying culture, is you can't mandate it. So you can't go out and just tell them this is our culture and you need to adopt it, right? So it's co-creating, it's inviting them into a conversation, it's adjusting and adapting that cultural vision. And then the larger, the more it's shared, then the more it can be actualized. The next step is, our step 4 is you want to take action. So this is, depending on the size of your company, this is going to look different, but you want to find something practical that you can do together that demonstrates your culture. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's that culture in action that really helps people understand what it looks like, right? So one example, just so I'm not just kind of too abstract or academic, is let's say new employees. Let's say that you want to make sure that every new employee, that you part of your culture is that you're welcoming and supportive of employees. So you could look at your new employee orientation and say, okay, what can we do to transform our new employee orientation experience into one that is demonstrates that we're welcoming. Another thing I referenced earlier before I got into the steps is using the marathon metaphor. So this isn't about the sprint. And so you want to continue to take action and have plans for action that will continue over time. And so, again, go for the long game. Now, we started this step one with it's necessary to believe. So you want to keep that up and understand that it will be challenged. If you're someone that is optimistic, you're positive, you believe the culture can be transformed, you believe that culture transformation is one of the most important things you can do as a leadership team, it can get discouraging when you don't see the kind of progress that you want. And that's where you want to really surround yourself with people that are uplifting for you. And that can be people that you're reading about, conferences you're attending, team members on your team that are also more positive and uplifting. But you want to understand if you're keeping that flame alive, in that we can have this very positive, high trust, high respect, high collaboration culture where everyone feels welcomed and supported and is treating our clients, customers, patients in this phenomenal way. And we're making a difference in the communities we serve. It can feel like a big lift if you're alone. So make sure you surround yourself with people that also uplift you, and so you can keep that belief alive and remember that it's so worth it. There's some things that about the why you want to do that, and also some realities. So one of the realities is that everyone isn't going to think this is as important as you. So just remember that's okay. Because it's that intangible that's so tangible, right? It's people can really understand salaries and benefits and why that's really important and why they want a better salary and better benefit package. Understanding why they would want to be part of a better culture, they could agree on that conceptually, but putting the time and effort to changing their own behavior, their own communication, their own thinking system, that can be a little bit of a harder bridge to build, but it's worth building. So just understand not everyone's going to think it's as important as you do, but it's still very worthwhile. And over time, while they might not understand that the concept of culture is important, they will understand that it feels great to be supported at work. Another thing is that just acknowledging that one of the barriers is that we can feel really stretched and too busy to do something proactive. And so that's where you're going to really want to know there's no good time where we have just a lot of time to work on something proactive that wasn't an urgent client deliverable. It wasn't something that was driving the financial sustainability of the company. It does, though. See, it does drive our financial sustainability, but not in that what I do today is going to make a difference next week. It's what I do every day is going to make a huge difference for the entire future of the company. And so just when you're looking at the investment, just know that some of the barriers that will come up, in addition to not everyone will think it's as important, people will feel busy and overstressed, people won't understand why it's worthwhile to make that investment. Just know it is worthwhile. It does pay off. They will see the results. You will see the results. And so let's go just to this next section, which, what are some actionable takeaways you could do? So we've gone through this, that, these steps of believing it's important and coming up with your bold vision, sharing your bold vision, taking it into action, keep believing, understanding there's going to be some barriers and being ready, to not let those get you down or stop, even if you slow down, or even if you take a break, just keep going. It's that marathon. So, and that it does pay off big when the culture's aligned with shared values, and you're going to experience and create that joy in the workplace, and you're going to have a culture that's filled with positivity and collaboration that leads to excitement and fulfillment, and you're going to have some big payoffs. So let's talk about some of the tactical things that you can walk away from the podcast today and do for you and your team and your organization. Number one, I love numbers, you can tell. Number one, reflect on your current culture. So, and that can be a great a homework assignment for your team that you want to bring together. You can be like, hey, what do we think our culture is today? What do we like about our culture? What do we want to change about our culture? But just kind of understanding what it is today and what they might want it to be can be a great takeaway and feed into that, creating the bold vision. Another thing is that envisioning the future culture. So we talked about, going into that session where you're creating that bold vision. So you can ask them before you ever go into that session together to really envision what they want their culture to embody. We also talked about the sharing it, right? And so that's about creating conversation. So what you could do there is you can look at existing meetings that you have where you might have different teams together. You can schedule some different sessions. It's not something that's going to work out for surveys. I love surveys. I recommend using them a lot. But this, you're really going to need to have the dialogue. So you can push the idea of having, I hope that doesn't sound too assertive, but you can, encourage. There you go. You can encourage the idea of having open conversations and encouraging leaders to talk to their team members about culture and how they feel about being a part of the organization and what that organizational culture looks like. And do they feel that, or are they aware of that? And then you can start with a small project. So this is an important one. I gave you an example of the new employee orientation. But if you can choose a project to start implementing that bold vision, you can make it very small, and you can pick the team members that you think are the biggest champions of the new shared vision that you want, and really make sure that inclusivity is a part of it. So I know that conflicts a little, maybe a lot, with when I said pick the people that are the biggest champions. That might not be inclusive, but pick the people that are big champions of transforming culture to lead the initiative, but then be very inclusive about who can be part of the initiative, and then make it very visible. So when you make sure everybody knows that, hey, we want to transform in this area, this is the small project that we're going to do this with, and then share the success, which goes to our next thing, is make sure you're always celebrating the progress. So I'm getting ready to wrap up here. Maybe the so gave that away. So you can up-level your culture. You want to know where you are today. You want to create a bold shared vision together. You want to start small and taking action. You want to celebrate the wins and share those wins. You want to believe it is possible and keep on believing. And basically what you do is you systematically interweave it throughout your organization. You demonstrate it. So let's say that part of your culture is you want to be supportive of your employees. Well, and I mentioned with new employees, welcoming and supportive, right? Approachable, whatever's important to you. Then you would look at your communication style, your frequency of communication, your tone of communication. You would look at your meeting cadence. You would look at how those meetings are run. You would look at your training programs. You would look at what training supervisors receive about supporting employees. You would look at your coaching or collaborative process for performance issues. You would look at how the exit process is handled. And what you would do is you would put that through the lens of your cultural vision of being supportive. And you would say, is this supportive? To what degree is this supportive? How do we change each of those things? And you would matrix that out, and you collectively work on changing those over time, so that a year out, if you look at all of those touch points for your employees, you can say that these were designed to be highly supportive. And then you get the input from your employees on whether they're experiencing it as supportive. So part of upleveling culture is understanding that we can take something that feels intangible and we can process, re-engineer it to be transformed. And yes, will there be a leader with passion and heart behind it? Multiple leaders? Yes, they will. Because unless you care about how employees, clients, and communities feel about your work, you're unlikely to invest the time in upleveling and transforming your culture. So now, since it's episode 2 and I've given myself up to episode 4 to memorize the intro and outro of this podcast, I'm going to be looking at the sheet. Thank you for being here and listening today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share. I can't tell you how happy it would make me if you do that. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you achieve your workplace fairy tale, you can contact us anytime and just shoot me an email, Yamin, ZYAMIN at thehumanpriority.com. And here it is. It's a wrap. See you next time. Have a great day and enjoy creating your workplace fairy tale. Peace out.